have to have your money right in order to get married?
But we have to, first of all, understand that this is a problem. No one's talking about this problem. This is a huge problem. It's the number one problem in our culture. So we must fix it.
Wow.
That was pretty revealing.
Welcome to the NOIRPOISED podcast, where wisdom is power is more than just a motto.
It's our way of life.
So we received a video from a good friend of ours. Shout out to you, Ish. And it got us talking.
Yeah.
So
which
we're
is a good sign.
Yeah, it's a good sign. I'm sure some of you have seen it. Maybe some of you haven't. It's discussing Black marriages being on decline and how that's affecting the drastic wealth gap between Black people and other races.
Yeah.
But before we play it, I wanted to ask you, do you think marriages affect wealth or the future of people financially?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, growing up, we hear all it takes is love, but we know that's
It ain't
definitely
only
not the
love.
case. No.
Facts.
Love is very important, but it's the foundation, but there's a lot of things that's built on top of it.
Right.
And there was a one time, this is after we got married, we've been married for a couple of years, and a young guy came up to me and said, you know, he plans on marrying his girlfriend. They both are in agreement with that.
Mm-hmm.
His main problem is he feels like he doesn't have his money right. So he asked me, do you have to have your money right in order to get married? What do you think I told him?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's what I told him. I told him that it's definitely an important factor.
Yeah. I mean, you could not have it in order, but you have to be prepared mentally to know that it may cause a strain on the relationship.
Yeah.
It may kind of like slow the progression of your marriage moving forward.
Yeah.
Not in like internal factors, but more so like you're going to have plans and goals together.
Right.
You're getting married. I assume you probably want to have kids in some cases. It's going to slow that down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So in that way, that's why I say, hell yeah.
The reason why I said yes is there comes so much with marriage that I think unless you're both on the same page as far as, no, even though we just got married, we're going to be hustling. We're not going to be going through that honeymoon phase of taking it easy, spending money, going on vacation, you know, just lounging, ordering food, going out. But we're both going to keep hustling. I think that's when it gets to be more acceptable.
Well, yeah, if both are on the same page, which should always be the case anyway.
Right.
If you're aligned and you have conversations and understand that this is what it is, and you're both on the same page, then, you know, it definitely can work. There's nothing wrong with that. But definitely having finances in order is helpful.
Yeah, that was actually my biggest motivation to go back to school and get my master's, is knowing that if I really want to have a wife or you to take care of or to, you know, help take care of, then I need to up my game, because I was comfortable before. And I think a lot of guys are comfortable where they're at, but with marriage, you have to step it up a little more.
And I don't even think it's just marriage. I think that marriage just it's usually the start of building something, right? So you're building a family, you're building a legacy, and having your finances in order kind of assists in moving further along or being able to focus on other factors that may come into play. So that's why I say, I mean, if someone was to ask me that, my answer is always going to be yes.
Yeah.
If you could do it, do it. But at the end of the day, that's not everyone's reality. Some people are not able to get their finances in the place that they would like. But the point is, have a plan, have goals, discuss it with your partner, be on the same page so you guys know what it is. What's your next step? What are you guys going to do the next 2 to 5 years, 5 to 10 years? And just kind of like be in one accord in that way. I think as long as both individuals are in one accord, great. But I think having excess debt, having like bad credit, that's always something that's gonna affect how you move forward.
Right.
So if it's possible to make sure that you can have it in order prior, absolutely. And that's not even just for men. I think that's for women too. Like for me, that was always a factor. Even in my 20s, when I was working a lot and saving, I was saving with the mindset that I want to be able to eventually buy a home. I wasn't waiting for, you know, a significant other to be that I'm gonna start saving now. Like it was always in the back of my mind that I should have a good savings.
Yeah.
So I know I have something to bring as well. And if I don't find someone, I'm still capable of achieving some of the goals and plans that I have for myself. So finances definitely is a factor. I think marriage and finances, people don't like to talk about it a lot, but the reality is people get divorced over it sometimes. Okay. It puts strains on the relationship. It causes arguments. It makes some women lose a certain type of respect for a man. If we're completely honest, that happens. So at the end of the day, yeah, I could see it. Yeah. I could definitely see it.
One thing I wanted to add before we play the video is, especially growing up in the church, we're taught that, money's evil. I heard so many people misquote the Bible to say, money is the root of all evil, when it's the love of money is the root of all evil. Yeah. So we grow up and we kind of have a negative relationship with money. And when it changed for me was to understand that money equals opportunity.
Absolutely.
So if you want an opportunity for a better life, you need more money. If you want an opportunity for a happier life, realistically, money shouldn't dictate happiness, but money could help will help you pay your bills, will help you live a comfortable life, so that
it doesn't dictate happiness, but money definitely creates the opportunities for happiness to come. Okay, yeah. I'm just saying. Yeah, I agree. I think it's understanding that you don't want to worship money.
Yeah.
And I think that's what should have been taught. You don't want to worship money, but the concept of not wanting money to me is like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
I really don't get it, because then that's just telling me like you're comfortable in the state that you are. You're comfortable not progressing. And I personally do not think that's what God has in store for his people. I don't think God wants us to sit in the same place that we were 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Like we are meant to evolve and grow, right? So in growing, it should be in all aspects. You can't just focus on I'm growing spiritually and you're not growing in other ways.
Right.
Your finances should be growing too. If you're gaining some of the skills that the Bible talks about, if you're disciplined, if you're, actually learning and making 2 turn into 4, then your finances will follow that trajectory.
Yeah.
So I don't really, you already know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
Money is needed.
Unless
we need it to eat, we need it to live, we need it for pleasure, we need it to help others, we need it for so many different reasons. Yeah. So, bro,
I would say unless both people are content with just living a certain lifestyle, then
to each his own.
Yeah, to each his own.
To each his own. That's like my favorite phrase these days. Listen, if it works for you, it works for you. It don't work for me, so hey, I'm just saying, at this point, if you don't have adequate money, how do you take care of your family? You know what I mean? Like, how do you do those things? And I think understanding that it's not necessarily the physical aspect of money, but again, it's the opportunities and the options that money gives you to create a fulfilled life.
Right.
That's the purpose for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're going to play the video right here so you guys can check it out and see it. And then we'll break it down and talk about it.
Yep.
There's a talk I give on the 5 biggest challenges black people have for the next 100 years. The number one challenge is the existential crisis of the black family. The existential crisis of the black family. Marriage in our culture is down to 34%. When we were growing up, it was 85%. It's now down to 34%. 71% of our sisters are not married, 29% will never get married, 63% of our brothers are not married, 30% of them will never get married. There is no culture in the history of humankind that has risen to maximize their full human potential without family at the center of their culture. This only exists. This is an interesting but negative statistic. This phenomenon of the existential crisis of our family only exists among African American black people. It does not exist on the continent or anywhere else in the diaspora. So there must be something in the water. We must fix this. It is a lot easier said than done because it is impacting our wealth. Quick statistics. For 350 years, household median income was dominated by white people. They were number one in this country. They no longer are number one, they're number 3, and there's a reason for it. So, who has the highest household median wealth in America? It's East Indians, $104,000 a year. What's the marriage rate in the East Indian culture? 94%. 2 are working. Who's number 2? Chinese Asians. Household median income $110,000 a year. Marriage rate close to 70%. Number 3 are white people. Household median income $88,000 a year. What's the marriage rate? Almost 50%. Down significantly. Number 4 are Hispanics. Household median income $61,000 a year. Marriage rate close to 70%. We are at the bottom. Household median income $55,000 a year. Marriage rate 34%. And projected based on facts and statistics that if we do not fix this, because white folks ain't fixing this, our marriage rate will be in the low teens in the next 20 years. This is an enormous challenge. It's a whole talk by itself on how do we fix it. It can be fixed, but we have to, first of all, understand that this is a problem. No one's talking about this problem. This is a huge problem. It's the number 1 problem in our culture. So we must fix it.
That was pretty revealing.
Yeah, it was. I was kind of trying to search like when this video was actually recorded. Yeah, because data's always changing regularly, right? So this could have been like 4 years ago, and it's drastically changed. I don't know, but in general, the information he's given, I'm sure at the time was factual from the time he did it, and maybe I'll verify and I'll probably put it, but there's so many different things that goes through my mind when I think of that, to be honest with you. First off, I think of, well, first and foremost, the link that my friend sent me to see this video was an Instagram link, and obviously it wasn't the original video, so it was someone else posting it and then giving their own information about it. And that person was more so going on a rant about what has happened to African American people over, the past few hundred years and things of that nature, and how every time they built, things were burned, or every time they tried, they took away the men from the home, or incarceration, or drugs being pushed into the communities, or welfare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's just so many different layers to it that I don't think it's just let's fix it. There's so many different generational burdens and curses. I think that goes into this topic, not to even mention like Black culture. Black culture in America is very tainted. It's very negative. And what they're pushing out in the media for our young people to see is ruining them internally, ruining them emotionally and mentally. And then you're adding on that a lot of people are being brought up in single parent households, or if it is a 2-parent household, maybe it's not the best relationship. I don't know. So there's many different factors. Of course, all of this could not affect the family. You make that decision and you live according to how you want to live. But the point I wanted to make was I don't think it's just it's because we're not getting married. I think there are a lot of different factors that are leading to us not getting married, and that then is affecting the wealth gap. But I think there's more that's affecting the wealth gap. I don't think it's just marriage.
Yeah. When you look at the welfare system, when it was introduced, it incentivized single parent homes. So I don't remember which famous banker said this, but something to that extent of, all they need is one generation to kind of set the tone, and then everyone else will follow suit.
And they did.
And they did. And I looked something up where, according to a Pew Research study from 2022, it said 79% of Black women stated that financial stability is a key factor in choosing a spouse. And we already know that Black men don't make as much as, other races. And it went on to say that 64% of Black women cited job security as essential for marriage, compared to 56% of white women. So Black women are, reasonably so, are more demanding that whoever they marry has to have job security. And when you match that with that, according to the stats, how Black people are less likely to have that and have financial stability, you can start to see why Black women, it's not that they don't want to get married, which is, I think, sometimes what society puts out there is Black people don't want to get married. I mean, this is just my opinion. But if you found someone to have kids with, which Black people are, you found someone at one point that you liked, that you said,
yeah, I'm willing to work on this
I'm willing to work
for a
on
while.
this for a while.
Yeah.
Going back to how the welfare system just crushed everything, I think it just incentivized people to, one, keep apart. It incentivized our parents or that generation to keep apart. And then us growing up, or the generation growing up, saw that.
Exactly.
So Black women saw
it.
their mothers struggling and said, I can never let that happen to me. I would rather, and if I have a child, and this is just psychologically, like if you watch your mother
suffer
as a single parent, you naturally tell yourself, I'm gonna be careful who I'm with. I don't want to end up like her, but I'm gonna make sure I get my education. I'm gonna make sure I get my own money. And even if I do find someone and I end up becoming a single mother, that's fine. My mother did it, and I'm doing it with more opportunities, more education. So I'll be okay. Like, it kind of normalizes that. And I think for men, it kind of put in the back of their mind that this is what it is. Like, how many times have we heard from people say, nah, you're not too young to have a kid, but you're going to get married now?
Yeah, that joint
You're
is
29
wild.
and you're going to get married? Like, why not have a kid first? Like, this is stuff that people actually
Told
say
us.
and think about, which I think it just goes to show how the system has done a great job to corrupt the way we view family and the way we view marriage.
Yeah, it's really sad. Because a person growing up in that situation, you're either going to mimic it, because there are a lot of people who are mimicking it. Like, if you think of a lot of people who grow up in the hood and remain in the hood, it's usually a situation where they're mimicking the behaviors that they saw. So we have to also admit that, like, a lot of the people who saw this type of behavior, to them it's so normal that that's how they continue to live on.
Right.
And then the ones who chose to go a different route and said, I'm not dealing with this, the standards are set so high that now it kind of creates this this unrealistic, like, expectation, and then also translates to the other gender that, like, I'm not good enough, so there's no point in even approaching you. So there's definitely that factor. And I honestly think it's culture too. I really think it's culture, because I think of, Black people who come from other countries and into America, who are not born and raised here. They have a very different mentality than we do. Although we're first generation Americans, nonetheless, we grew up in America. So we have been influenced heavily by American culture, whether we want to admit it or not. Yeah, we're Haitian and we're influenced by Haitian culture as well. But there's parts of us that has taken in the American culture. And there's a very big difference between Haitian culture and American culture. Both Black people, but they have different mindsets. And one thing that came to mind when I was thinking of this as well is multi-generational households. But not just in the case of, like, you're 35 and you're not moving out kind of thing because times are hard, because that's pretty much what's happening these days. Is a lot of people are staying home for financial reasons and being unable to leave. But I'm talking about cultures where it's normal for the grandparents to live in the same home as the parents, to live in the same home as the kids. Like, they have normalized that. And two of the cultures that he mentioned that are actually above the white wealth gap was, I believe it was Eastern Asian, right? So Indian, Indian people, and then Chinese Asians. But I don't know if y'all know any of them, but I have known people from those cultures, and I've worked with them, and I've actually even befriended some of them. And that is something that is part of their culture. It doesn't matter how much who's making what. It doesn't matter if both parents are making six figures and grandpa and grandma are still working. They find larger homes and keep the income within one household. So now the mortgage, instead of it being split 1 or 2 ways, it's being split 2 to 4 ways. Even if it's not being split 2 to 4 ways, someone is able to retain a lot of their income for savings and able to invest into other homes or other things. I actually know multiple families from the Indian culture that have followed that type of lifestyle because it's part of their culture and it's normalized. When the child marries, they take in the parent of the husband, and it doesn't matter how young, it doesn't matter how much money, they stay within the same home. Those grandparents are now also assisting in raising those children that they have, so they don't have to outsource for they don't have to outsource for care for their children. They don't have to outsource for additional cleaning help. They don't have to outsource for cooking or having to order out, because if one person is working, another person is cooking. Nonetheless,
I was waiting for that nonetheless.
You already know.
Yeah.
You already know how I feel about that. Nonetheless, peace of mind is important too. I gotta admit, although, their money's long, but their minds are losing it from having to deal with the personalities and the clashing and all of that.
Yeah.
So you got to consider that too. So pros and cons, there's pros and cons. But the point is, I don't think that occurs as heavily within our culture as Black Americans. Nonetheless, there are, because I actually looked up the rates and I was surprised to see this. But keep in mind, our economy has been terrible for the past 5 years now? Yeah. For almost 5 years, if not more. The economy has been terrible. There are not as many jobs. People are not getting paid as much to deal with inflation and the cost of living. So yes, there are a lot of us now that are staying in our parents' homes longer because we cannot afford. But if it was a situation where we could afford, according to culture, I don't think it would be the same situation, But I'm just going to read some stats that I found. So this is a Pew Research that was done. And according to them, they said a quarter of Asians, so 24% Asians, 26% Blacks, and 26% Hispanic Americans lived in multi-generational households in 2021 compared to 13% of those who were white. So it's interesting that white people are actually not doing it as much, but still are at the top bracket of the wealth gap, but I think we know why. And it does focus that it's mainly foreign born. Yeah. So in other words, people who are from other countries came here, became citizens. So it's not African American, African Americans who are born and raised here. So it just goes to show that it's not something that's done within the African American community as much, maybe. I don't know. And it also says that these people, this is according to the Pew Research done in 2021, but these people who were living in multi-generational families are least likely to deal with poverty. So that, in my opinion, confirms what I was saying, that it kind of gives everyone a little resting place and allows the family to grow as a team rather than everyone has a separate mortgage and everyone's struggling and everyone's living paycheck to paycheck. You can't build that way if you're not able to have something to invest in. You know what I mean?
Well, I have a couple of thoughts. Well, the first is I wonder if things would be different automatically if Black men earned more.
In what way?
If Black men were earning more money, would we see the marriage rate increase automatically based off of that? You think so?
Possibly.
So
some people may not want to admit it, but because what's the top things you hear women say when they're single? What do they look for? One of the first
financial stability.
Yes, one of the first things they look for is financial stability. Now, I don't think it should be a make or break. I've expressed this in many episodes, but the reality is that's what a lot of women who are single are looking for. Especially women who have, especially for women who have put themselves in certain positions and have seen their parents go through certain situations that they're not willing to go through. They want to make sure that they avoid it. That's what our mind does, right? We go through certain situations, we're nah. And so you go towards the opposite direction to make sure you never have to experience that again. So it is understandable. So I would say, if men were making more, it would give them more options.
This is just, I don't have any data to back this up, but just from my experience, I noticed that the couples who are the happiest or who last longer, they were at one point hustle partners.
They went through the struggle together.
Yeah, they went through the struggle together. I've heard my parents say this before, where there were times when, they really didn't have money. So my mom would just go to the store, grab a couple of plantains, boil it, you buy a meat really cheap and you survive on that. And when I hear them say that story, I can see how they were able to stay together for such a long time. Because when you go through it with someone, you naturally have that respect for them. I think it also causes the love to grow. And in my opinion, one of the mistakes that's causing this decline in marriages, people don't want to hustle together anymore because they're usually at a different level. Women are more educated, so a woman may have her bachelor's and master's before the guy even has his bachelor's yet. And she may not be willing to stick around to help him get through that.
Right.
Or
she's not willing to help him build.
Right. She's not willing to help him build, or vice versa, where a guy may be a hustler and the female is unsure of what she wants to do. And he's kind of like pressuring, like, no, you got to figure out. And it causes a strain in their relationship. So I think a good possible solution is to not just find someone you love, you're attracted to, but find someone that you could hustle with, you could build with.
Yeah, I think that's important, but it reminds me of a video that triggered this thought because, again, I grew up in a time where they promoted, as a young lady, you go to school, you get your education, get your bachelor's, get your master's if you can. If you want to go for the doctorate, even better. Mm-hmm. Have your money in order. Don't count on a man. Be independent. Do for yourself. As you're waiting, prepare yourself in all aspects. So make sure you have something to bring to the table. This is what was taught to women in my generation. So every time people talk about the amount of singlehood that's occurring with Black women in their 30s and 40s, I'm just like, well, let's rewind a little bit to about 20 to 30 years ago. What were you teaching her? Mm-hmm. And that's what they were teaching us. They were teaching us to be overachievers. They were teaching us to focus on our success. They were teaching us that women can and should do it too. By all means, like, yeah, I think that's great. Mm-hmm. But it was shoved down our throat so much that I really think it caused us to lose a sense of respect for the male gender.
Yeah, I believe that.
Because the reality is, if you realize you could do something like by yourself, and then you meet someone who like is illustrating that they can barely do it, it's going to affect the respect that you have for them. Mm-hmm. I don't know if y'all agree with me, but I personally think it's going to affect the respect that you have for them. You can love them, but what have we learned? Men will choose respect over love any day.
Yeah.
So that, I think there's just so many like foundational issues that's leading to this. So now you have women who are successful and thriving and making great money and have businesses and are buying themselves homes on their own and getting apartments, but they can't find someone because it wasn't shoved down the men's throat the way that it was shoved down our throat.
Yeah.
So you have to look at that too. So most women are probably not willing to do the building aspect of it anymore because they've been conditioned to think that like, if I built this on my own, you should have been building too.
Yeah.
You know, like that's how a lot of women are thinking. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. I can't sit here and be like, be willing to build, be willing to build. Like there's a lot of unlearning that has to happen mentally for a woman to be able to do that after 3 decades of being taught that you could do it on your own, and a man who's supposed to be stronger than you should have been doing it on his own too, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You know what's crazy about that? No data to back this up again, but just observation. I think women really hit their stride in their 20s and men in their 30s, maybe even 40s.
I think 40s, yeah. I think men really do hit it like towards the end of their 30s and 40s.
Yeah. So naturally, imagine a woman in her 20s growing up and hitting all those levels, and you're looking at men who are your age, and you're like, what are you doing with yourself? You know, you're asking all those questions. So whatever they did a great job in just corrupting everything. But I do believe that the power of good is greater than the power of evil. So if we address the issue and everyone is doing their individual parts, to address the issue, then we can definitely turn this around, like the guy in the video was saying.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think it takes teamwork. It takes teamwork in relationships because I know the focus is marriage, but it also takes teamwork amongst each other. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not just about being married, but like having a community. I think that's, we talked about Black communities and do we support each other in one of the episodes this season. And I think that could also be a factor. It doesn't have to just be marriage. I understand how marriage influences the wealth gap because now you have one household, 2 incomes. But again, if you have one household and 4 incomes, you know what I mean? Like it could just be like it's a parent, or maybe it's a 2-level home and you're like, I'm renting this space up there out to this specific family member. There's different ways to do it, but ultimately I just think it takes unity and it takes teamwork. It takes unlearning to be able to relearn things, you know what I mean? So we can't keep focusing on these are the stats, these are the numbers, these are the things that are happening. Let's look at, well, what are the sources?
Right.
Where did it start? what are some of the foundations? What are we promoting now? Because let's be honest, what are we promoting now?
Right.
When I was coming up, they were definitely promoting women being independent. I can think of 1,000 songs, not 1,000, but I could think of many songs that promoted and encouraged young girls to be independent and not count on anyone. What are we promoting now?
Yeah.
We're not promoting marriage. No. We're not promoting love. We're promoting lust.
Yeah.
We're promoting singlehood. We're promoting women savages that can sleep around and do what they want. We're promoting men not respecting women. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're promoting gender bashing. Like, we're promoting these things. How are we going to see? Men, how are we going to see differences? We're promoting the emasculation of men. Yeah. There's so many different things that we are currently promoting within our culture. And I think we should take initiative as individuals to make the difference first.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, in our household, my kids ain't gonna watch them videos, bro. I'm just saying, like, because I think they have to be at a mature level to understand not to take and retain the information before I can expose you to that type of behavior. Because some of the stuff I was watching when I was like 9, 10, I'm like, my brain was not developed enough to even be watching that or listening to that. So then you embed these things into our minds and wonder why we have a certain thinking. So I think it's little things like that that really play a factor. Like, we have to realize, what are we putting in? And if we're putting in things that's going to give out this result of people not respecting marriages anymore, then that's what we're going to get. We need more of like the Black love marriage kind of thing, where young people can come up and see like, no, marriage is a good thing. Yeah. You know, like it's not the whole ball and chain or you tied down when you get married. Oh, your life is over when you get married. But if we promote the positivity of it, because everything has pros and cons, if we promote the positivity, then maybe the next generation coming up will have a little bit more respect. If we start really like investing in our relationships, like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Not popping out babies just for the sake of popping out babies because they're cute, but really investing in relationships and building with people and saying, I want to build a legacy and a family with you. You know what I mean? Then you won't have the situations where people are leaving each other within 1 to 2 years of having a child. That's another thing that occurs within our culture now, where because so many people are having children prior to marriage or not respecting marriage enough to marry before children, there's a lot that occurs with a woman hormonally within the 1st to 2nd year of having a child. And men are not going to understand that because he never has to go through it. Yeah. And he's not informed of it prior. So when I really think not being married makes it easier to walk away. Mm-hmm. And so we see it all the time. It's talked about even with celebrities. We see it with people we know where within the first 2 years of a child being born, they decide to separate. And to each his own, you know, like some relationships, maybe you realize it's not going to work, but you have to understand like those 2 years are usually the trenches. Yeah. If you go through the trenches with someone, you'll start to see a little bit of the brighter side afterwards if you both are willing to work on it. Right. You know, so yeah, I feel like there's a lot of factors.
Yeah, I like what you said about just overall giving marriage a makeover. Where I think a lot of people, we view the negative aspects of marriage. Like you said, the whole ball and chain thing. It may be people who are having successful marriages or successful relationships. You know, we can publicize that more. So, and not on the Instagram fake.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be that. Yeah.
But just generally, just make marriage more popular.
Yeah, I if I had to say it like generalize, because I don't even like the whole social media like thing, but to each his own. Like I understand that people that do that, whatever. But it's really just about like practicing what you want to see. Yeah. Practicing what you preach. So in a situation like this with what we're discussing, like just being what you want to see in your community. Yeah. You know, like trying your best in every way to be that, like support one another in relationships and out of relationships, and build with one another in relationships and out of relationships. And you'll slowly see us thriving and see progression. Right. And in regards to like us building, and every time we build, they burn, because that's a reality that we live, right? So I'm saying all this like build and support and this, that, and the third. I'm sure our people have done that and have tried doing that. I don't think it has been promoted, but I know it has been done. Like, I don't know if you heard of the Tulsa massacre.
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to mention that because I think that's an example of how our people at some point in time have tried and have built as a community. And each time we do, we're either not given fair treatment, it's burned down, banks don't want to loan us the same amount of monies, credit cards are charging us larger interest, like our credit score starts lower. Like, there's all these things that are set out there that, you know, if 100% true, will affect us, right?
Yeah.
And I say this all the time, and I think I've said it in an episode, it's going to be difficult. It's always going to be difficult when you're starting from a negative, right? In anything. And I think that's what's happening now with our generation when it comes to marriages and wealth is we're low-key kind of starting from a negative again. And in order to get back to like a leveled state, it's going to be extremely difficult. And there are going to be crazy challenges that we face. But I think it's important to have the mindset like, and I'm speaking to myself because Lord knows, I'm saying all this positive stuff, and I be the one in the bathroom like, what the heck is happening here? So it's not to act like I got it all together. Absolutely not. No. But I just want to remind you guys, as I remind myself, the importance of pushing through the fire, walking through the fire and pushing through until we see the light. And it may not even happen within this current generation. What's important is seeing progression. You don't necessarily always have to get to the end goal, but as long as there's progression instead of like regression.
Yeah.
So if there's progression, I think that's what's the important thing to focus on. I don't know about y'all. I don't know what the media pushes out. I'm learning not to trust every stat that I hear because I understand that it could be manipulated. But based on what I see, based on who I talk to, based on the people that I surround myself with, I am seeing growing and thriving Black marriages.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that, and I'm choosing to believe that that is the narrative of our culture as African Americans. And I think there's also an importance in focusing on what you choose to believe. Not saying to deny what's out there or whatever the case is. We can't deny the negative, but sometimes I think we focus too much on the negative stats and not enough on the solutions and the people that are actually doing it right, because there are people doing it right. There has always been people doing it right. It's just not publicized for us to see. So unless you surround yourself with those people who are doing it right, it's always going to seem like we're not,
right?
You know? So I would say focus on the positive, bro. Surround yourself with the people that are doing the things you want to see, and be those people that are doing the things you want to see with your community.
Love that.
And we're out. Thank you for spending your time with us. We hope you gained some knowledge today that'll promote poise in your life. We have new episodes uploaded every Thursday right here, same place, same time. Until next time, you can follow us on Instagram at NOIRPOISED Podcast to stay connected. That's NOIRPOISED Podcast. We'd love to hear your feedback.
And remember, your wisdom is power.